All right, all right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a collaboration like no other. We have an amazing lineup of panelists up with me on stage today. We will be talking a little bit about the gender equation, how we're going to lead through balance through Sinar Daily's live panel discussion right here at KLGCC Mall, the newest and the hottest mall in town, as I've heard, in the heart of this luxurious township. If you are just passing by and you're wondering what is going on here, take a seat, come join us in this discussion for the next hour. So this edition, brought to you by Sinar Daily, Sime Darby Property, as well as Girls for Girls Malaysia, is going to be extra special because we're celebrating Movember, which is a month dedicated to men's mental health, since many may say that men's mental health may be overlooked. And there are statistics that do show for it as well. 1 in 10 men suffer from mental health or some form of mental illness, yet less than half of them actually receive some form of treatment. So we're really here to make sure and talk about this, and it's a real perfect time to talk and really dissect a little deeper into how both men and women can have a good relationship and can really work together to create more effective, more empathetic, and just a better and healthier and stronger leader, not just within the workforce, but even beyond that. So today we're joined by a dynamic and powerful lineup here. I'm just going to go one by one. We have Alana Dunsmore right next to me here. Alana is a content creator. Give her a round of applause if we can, everyone. Alana is a content creator. She's a student. She's wife to Abbas Mahmood as well. So if Abbas in the crowd with us, there he is. All right, just having a loving husband here. And she also owns her own business. So you run Goldie's, as I've heard, which is a traditional Scottish treat, bringing her culture here to a new home in Malaysia. Thank you so much for joining us, Alana. Now we have, at the very far end there, we have Sarah Shanor. She is the director of an all-natural skincare line, Cuura. Most of you have heard of it. Give a round of applause if we can to Sarah. Now, if you didn't know, Cuura is actually the first Malaysian beauty brand to carry halal certification on all its products. And she was also the brains of Mode Vier, which is a multi-label modest fashion brand. So not only that, but of course, Sarah is a doting, loving mom and a wife dedicated to uplifting women and building a community of success around her. Now, last but certainly not least, we have a male, the only male on the stage right now. We have Dr. Ibrahim Shahruddin. Can we give a round of applause to our male ally here? Now, Dr. Ibrahim is the managing director at iCare Dental Clinic in Damansara Heights. He is also the vice president of the Malaysian Association of the Aesthetic Dentistry. Now, it's also worth mentioning that since it's befitting the topic, Dr. Ibrahim is married to renowned fashion designer Fuzana Motazar. She's in the crowd right here as well. There she is. All right, and Dr. Ibrahim is also a proud girl dad to 3 loving daughters. So we are also in the crowd here today. All right, without wasting too much time, we're just going to dive right into this topic. So this panel will break it down into multiple blocks or multiple parts, namely 3 parts. The first part that we're going to look into is really talking about the mind behind healthy and effective leadership. The reason why I want to talk about this is because all great leadership stems from that first thing, which is your own mind and your mindset to things. In today's fast-paced, high-stakes workplace, there's a lot of burnout, a lot of stress, a lot of emotional fatigue. And this doesn't discriminate gender. It happens to both men and women, though it manifests differently and looks differently for both genders here. But what's important is not the stress and the fatigue that comes with it, but it's really how you respond, how you interact, and how you react to such emotional distress that you face, especially as an entrepreneur, as a leader, right? So the first question really is going to touch a little bit on leadership burnout, because again, this happens to both men and women, though it looks a little different, it manifests a little differently for both genders. Just going into it straight away, from your experiences here, how does burnout manifest? How do you think burnout manifests differently across, I guess, in your context or as a woman or as a man? I think let's go with Alana first and see what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for myself, Assalamu alaikum everyone, by the way, I'm Alana. So for myself, burnout definitely looks like I am just slowing down. I am no longer being as productive as I should be. Maybe a little bit of doom scrolling sprinkled in there. And that's the moment where I have to check myself. Gosh, Alana, what is the point to keep pushing through this when you're not even being productive anymore? So for me, I don't have a set day off in my schedule in my week because my week is so flexible and look, content creation never stops. I'm sure we're all aware. So when I start to feel those signs, those symptoms, Alana, you're not being productive anymore, that's when I've got to take a step back. You've got to turn off that iPhone for a second and you've really got to check yourself. Okay, what do I want to do today? Rather than what does my job require for me to do today? Because I could just keep working 24/7, just keep grinding. Oh, I'm young, I can keep going. Guys, like my mom always tells me, that's not the honest truth. You will just burn out eventually. One quote my mom always tells me is you cannot burn your candle at both ends. She always tells me that. And I learned the hard way. So on those days, I've got to sit down, check myself, go for a little matcha with my husband, and get away from the phone for a while.
I love to hear, and that's actually a very resonating advice that your mother has given as well, that you cannot just keep burning out the candle on both ends. Now, I'd just like to just direct this into a more gender-specific lens, given our topic for today, right? Burnout can happen, again, like we mentioned, in different ways for both genders. For men, typically when we talk about emotional fatigue or burnout, it tends to be dismissed under the stigma that men should be strong or stoic. Whereas for women, when burnout happens and it's a bit more expressive, women are labeled too emotional. So I'm just curious, going to Dr. Ibrahim here, how do we then begin to break these stereotypes for both ends? So it's not like one is better than the other, definitely not. But how do we begin to break these stereotypes for both men and women and tackling burnout, tackling stress, especially as leaders?
Okay, hi. Assalamualaikum. I'm Dr. Ibrahim. Thank you, Sinar Daily, for having me here. Let's start as before I go to the gender roles. Being a dentist is actually a very stressful job. It's actually scientifically proven top 3 to be the most suicidal job or high stress or something. So, because you deal with meticulous things, you deal in everything in micro. So everything needed to be perfect in a way. And lawsuit is like at the back of your head. If you do thing wrong, then, you're dealing with people's health. So everything is at very, at a high stake. So basically, and then it doesn't help when patient come and, the first thing that they say is, I hate dentists. Right? I mean,
Who here does not like dentists? Be
like
honest.
dentists? I mean, if I'm not a dentist, I would. If I'm not a dentist, I wouldn't like myself as well. But it is what it is. I'm into this, right? So it is a very stressful job. It is sometimes it's very easy for you to become burnout, and like you say, as men, you always internalize it because you don't show that you don't show your sign of weakness as a man. So when that happens, I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to be aware of it. Okay, so if any of the answer that I might say today is being aware of the burnout signs, be aware of your mental status and the stress level. If you feel that it's already getting there, you do what you do. I mean, it's easy for me to go back to a beautiful house with my wife and 3 girls. It's sort of like straight away brings your mind out of it. But you find your happiness in life, and but the first thing you need to be aware of it. If you don't aware of it, then you'll start to be consumed in all this stress and burnout. Yep.
That's very, very key. So awareness is that first step, that first sign of really breaking that stereotype, breaking that I guess, self-indulgent of being so consumed in stress and anxiety and everything. That's really, really a well put out response. Now, Sarah, do you agree with that? And I guess in your perspective as a woman as well, on the other side of things where women are often deemed too emotional when we, I guess, express a little bit of, or show a bit of a small sign of discontentment or stress, right? How do you think we can break this stereotype, especially as a leader?
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Sarah. Thank you, Sinar, also for having me. So I think, in my context, because I work together with my husband, so I see him dealing with, like stress or anxiety differently. when I asked him, you look so chill, and he's like, no, I'm actually stressed inside. So it's like, really? But you're like YOLO, whatever. So he's like, no. But I'm always the kind of person who's like, I can't deal with this anymore. I resign. So I think
Very relatable. Very relatable.
I know, right? So I think men and women are quite different. I think men, they deal with it silently. I don't know, but my man does that. Are you like that, doctor? Or are you more emotional? I'll ask Fuza that afterwards. But I think because women, you have to deal with a lot of things. You have to multitask a lot of things. I'm not just a businesswoman. I'm also a mother. I'm a wife. So, it's all the noise. But I learned that the hard way. You can't be a superhero, especially to everyone. You can't take up all the responsibilities and think you can do it all. So you have to know when you have to delegate. Although you don't want to, I love to micromanage because I want to do everything. I want to make sure that every single staff is doing what. But I think at the end of the day, it's pointless, and you just have to know when the balance has to come. So, you have to also, they want to see you also like a leader, but also someone who knows how to balance yourself. They don't want to, the hustle culture, I think it doesn't work anymore for me, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think those are very, very strong words that resonate, especially for someone of your backing as a founder, as a leader, to hear that the hustle culture is not sustainable, especially as a leader.
You need to have that balance.
There's that balance, right? And I think just having that balance and also just having to admit that comes from a place of vulnerability or a place of self-awareness that, correct me if I'm wrong, for all of you here, it's hard to achieve to some extent. It's hard to admit that we cannot do it all and we cannot have it all without, in a way, going insane, right? To put it very crudely. So I guess just to segue into the next question would be, how can we then reframe vulnerability or self-awareness as a strength rather than something that is seen as a weakness, especially talking about, again, a leadership context, right? We often think that we have to be strong. We have to put on a strong face. We have to be that person for our team, not just for yourself, but for your team, right? So having that level of vulnerability is something that is easier said than done. So how do we then reframe vulnerability as something good or something strong rather than a weakness? So maybe, Alana, would you like to take that on first?
Yeah, I think when it comes to vulnerability, for example, for me, I feel like you can be honest and you can be somewhat vulnerable and still a leader. You can actually try and do it all. For example, when you're leading your team, you want to be careful with your words enough that you're getting the truth across, but you don't want to seem, too moany or too, all these kind of negative things. So I suppose it's how much vulnerability you're willing to share with your team, if that's the context, and honesty as well. So for me, I feel like honesty is great. I'm thinking about my own team. You've got to be honest with what you expect from them, what they can deliver, and you can be a little bit vulnerable with them and still be a good leader. So it's up to you where you can find that balance, I suppose, because everyone will be different. That's just life, isn't it? There's no one box can fit all. It's really up to you and your dynamic with your team as well.
I love that response. And I think one keyword that I keep hearing from all three of you is balance, awareness, and also balance, right? So just to, I guess, reaffirm this pattern and this theme, Dr. Ibrahim, would you say balance is the main theme in describing or defining what a mentally healthy leader looks like today? Or how would you describe what a mentally healthy leader is to you? Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting now that leadership, I think, personally, I think leadership has changed in this era. We are living in this era where leadership is not just about numbers and result anymore. It's more about value-driven. So, like for example, Momdani just won mayor of New York. I mean, the other party have 20, 30 billionaires funding, but he won against all odds, because now what we want to see is in a leader, although we know that he won't get any back, fundings or anything, but people still vote for him because they saw value in him. So leadership has in this era has changed so much from just numbers to what value you can bring to your team. And being vulnerable, it used to be a weakness in the past era, but in this era, if you are strong enough to internalize it and put down your ego and admit it, it's actually a strength in control. Your team will trust you more when you openly say, I'm not confident to do this. I don't know whether I can do this. Can somebody help me to do this? Or what are the ways you think we can solve this problem? Because my way might not be the only way. Things like that. When you open to your team, you can harness more from them. That's what I think is the new era of leadership, where value is the center core of it. Yeah.
I love to hear that about how leadership at the end of the day is, like you said, beyond numbers, beyond titles even to this point. And I love that you use recent examples about how Mamdani recently won just a few days ago, and he's literally a nobody or a newbie in the political space in New York or in the US politics scheme as well, yet he still won thanks to that connection, that empathy, that self-awareness and vulnerability that we talk about in being a leader in today's context and today's society. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I really want to build on what we've talked about here about the mindset, about what being a leader means in today's context, and just jump a little bit into talking about what happens when both men and women can bring these different strengths and different values that we have together. So just jumping a little bit into gender balance, gender bias, and maybe even how we can cultivate better workplaces for everyone here in this room today. So we've talked a little bit about what being a leader means to all three of you individually, right? Just the individual mind. Now I want to just move on into how we can move into a collective workplace or even society or community beyond just the workforce. Now gender dynamics at work can be a little complex to say the least. Again, like we mentioned earlier, women often carry invisible emotional or domestic burdens, even as leaders, while men may face the pressure to stay calm or stay stoic, or like you mentioned, stay chill, right? Even in the face of a lot of challenges, as what your husband may have faced as well. Just want to unpack a little bit more about the patience and the empathy that both men and women can actually build together to build better functioning teams in the workplace and beyond. So, Sarah, I'm going to go to you here for this one. How do gender expectations, both at work and at home, how do they shape how men and women show up professionally? Since you have a real-life example of you and your husband, how does the home life affect work life, and how do you think that can be better in some aspects? If there's any room for improvement at all, yeah.
How does our work life affect our personal life?
Or vice versa, personal life affect work life, yeah.
It affects a lot because we didn't really start doing business together. I was a stay-at-home mom. Suddenly I wanted to do business. And then he was working in oil and gas. He wasn't around all the time. He was always offshore. I had to take care of the kids alone. So suddenly I wanted to do business. And then, I don't know, it kind of kicked off. And then suddenly, he came into the business as well. So we actually came in together accidentally. So we didn't have like expectations. But I think my style of work was different. And I think we started in fashion. And it went on for a few years, didn't end nicely, almost got a divorce. I think we need another session for that.
I appreciate the candid sharing.
But I guess we were younger back then, and I wanted a lot of things. I mean, definitely it was the difference in personality, because he was always working, corporate, and it was a different, style of working. And when he came into the business, he was all about, you have to look at the numbers, this has to be right. And I was like, no, let's just do whatever I'm good at. So, it was a total opposite. But I guess that didn't work out, Innalillah. So anyway, as I said, almost got a divorce. And then we finally had the talk, like, this is what I'm good at, this is what you're good at. I think we have to lead separate lives at work. You have your own team, I have my own team. Don't disturb each other unless we have to. So I guess it's a lot about that communication, but along the many, many years that we started doing it together, we kind of matured in terms of where you need to stop and where you need to not talk about work anymore. And I guess now that we're 43 and our kids are much older, we realize that, work is work, but we do need that balance, and we stop doing that. As I said, that, that hustle mindset doesn't work anymore, although it's so nice, because when you go back and then you're like, suddenly you have all these ideas, but you know that it's time to switch off, and you don't want the kids to know that mommy and papa is still working. So we do that. We have that, we have that schedule. 6:30 is always dinner with the family. We don't talk about work anymore. It's all about the kids. And then 7:30, and then 7 we pray together, and then we talk with the kids, like whatever we do, and then 8 o'clock we pray again together, and that's done. So I think, whatever happens after 6:30 is not work anymore. And then I guess because of that, we have a lot more respect towards each other. So yeah.
That is such a lovely, lovely trajectory to hear from what was near divorce potential to what is a successful, not just business, but also relationship today. So congratulations to hear on that, Sarah. Thanks for sharing that so candidly. That's the whole beauty of having this sharing session so openly here. Now, I just like to touch a little bit upon what you mentioned earlier about how, again, the hustle culture of bringing work back home past 6:30, past midnight even, and just continuing to think about work even when you're at home with your kids, with your husband, and with your wife, right? Now, there's a lot of invincible pressure for both men and women, but I think especially for in a woman or gender female-based lens, especially as a mother, I imagine, not only you don't just think about work after you get home, but you might also think about home when you're at work during office hours, especially if you have kids. You think about, okay, what time do they get home from school later, what time, or what are they going to have for lunch, for dinner, whatever this and that, right? So these are, I would say, some invisible pressures, as we call them, I think in a lot of these reports that we see a lot about gender. How can a lot of workplaces, especially since all of you are leaders in your respective companies, how can workplaces start acknowledging these invisible pressures across both men and women more openly? So is there any experience that maybe you can draw from your company or anything that you think would be a good start if it hasn't already been started? Maybe you can go to Dr. Ibrahim for this.
Sorry, invisible.
Yeah, how can workplaces acknowledge more invisible pressures amongst both men and women? So for example, if women, especially those who are mothers, they get a bit more stressed out because of their kids, so that might affect their performance at work, right? So how can workplaces reinforce this, or even for men when maybe they have stay-at-home wives who they may have to support even more, and that affects them at work as well because of all the pressure? How can workplaces or leaders play a part in acknowledging this?
So basically, the first thing you need to understand, like I said earlier, is awareness, right? Also, now that in this era again, this gender roles has changed, has developed. I mean, men don't used to not to change the diapers of their kids, but now it's like, it's almost weird if you don't do that, right? Because it's like really, men's are doing traditionally women's job, and women's are fantastic. Women's here as a panelist, I mean, working in the forefront of business, they're doing traditionally men's job. So these gender roles, it's very much intertwined now. But you have to know that men's are from Mars and women's are from Venus, right? So these are really two different entities, I would say. They have different mind. They have different way of thinking. They have different way of emotional, bringing the emotional out. I would say, emotional intelligence is much more higher in women, but probably less in men. But that's the way it is, So when you get to harness that, when you understand that, then you get to harness it better. So like, as for a leader, if you want to solve a problem that involve like probably politics in the office, probably you wouldn't want to put a lady boss there, because it might sparks more of the drama. Not to say that it's something bad, but like I say, everyone have their weakness. Everyone have their weakness, and everyone have their own strength. And we think differently. So sometimes as a man, I would think, we need to we need to start the show at 8:30. So I need to get ready, I need to get here, you know. But sometimes women, they would think like, okay, what about the traffic? What about what I'm gonna wear? You know, I have wear this shirt last week or 3 years ago, and I wouldn't want people to see me wearing that. You know, there's a lot thing going on in the mind. So it's different. You don't need to understand or to know how it's going on, but you need to just know that it's there. You need to know the difference. You need to know, you know, okay, you work differently. Women works differently. Men works differently. Once you have that understanding, then you can harness the strength in each gender. Yep.
Thanks for sharing that. That's actually a very, very strong response. And I think that's a really, really good follow-up point that I want to make here as well. And when we talk about gender equality, there's always this mindset or perception that, okay, it's a competition, right? Like, who is the better gender? Which one's the better, right? When the actual answer is there's no better one. It should be a win-win situation for all of us. So then, Alana, I just want to point back to you here, just jumping on Dr. Ibrahim's point on harnessing each other's strengths and complementing each other's weaknesses as well. How do we shift this mindset from gender competition, if we want to call it that, to something that's a bit more complementary? How do we find that strength to balance rather than clashing with each other, saying, you're better, I'm not, I'm better, you're not? How do we find, or how do we shift that mindset? It starts with the mind, right? So yeah.
Well, really interesting, because I was speaking at another event earlier this week with the Ministry of Education. Now, us as panelists agreed, and we were all international alumni who had studied in Malaysia from different countries. We had all agreed that actually, when we came to Malaysia, we seen that the gender roles were not like our own countries. There is that competition in the UK. There is that competition between men and women. You know, this is a male sector, you women stay out of it. This is a female sector, you men have no right here. But then when we all came to Malaysia, we've seen that it's very much more, hey, Malaysia boleh, relax, you know, like santai, santai. Like, I just feel like that competition has, within Malaysia, come down, and alhamdulillah for that. It's not about men versus women versus men. Yes, the gender roles have changed. I mean, I think I'm very young to say that, but what I see, what I hear, yes, okay, they have changed since my parents' generation, for example. But with that comes a beautiful new workplace, a beautiful new place to go study. So overall, alhamdulillah, in Malaysia, I think this competition has died down, and we did agree on that at the panel.
That is such an amazing, amazing take. And I think I speak for most of us, or many of us Malaysians here, to say that that's a very, very proud Malaysian moment. Malaysia boleh, guys. Well done to hear that. I just want to touch a little bit on, so knowing that, especially where we stand as a nation, hearing from Elena's experience, comparing with her home country, and how men and women are currently working in synergy, not in competition and rivalry with each other, right? Despite that synergy, or while we work towards achieving that synergy with men and women, there's still some level of unconscious bias in all of us, no matter who we are, no matter how progressive we all think, right? There's that level of unconscious, which is why it's called unconscious, deep within us, of what we think, okay, men can do this, women can do this better. That's always going to be deep inside us. So I guess just going to Sarah here, since you do run a skincare line, which skincare, traditionally, people might think is a very feminine business, right? But of course, you have a diverse team of men and women in your company right now. How do you tackle unconscious bias in your workplace without losing that productivity, without making it the center or the focus of your company? Because it is not. It's really just something that we should work on, but not in compromising productivity. So how do you tackle that, Cuura?
I would say, like, in a lot of areas, we try to mix the team. So there's always a mixture of, you know, a good mixture of male and also females in the team. Because I think that men are more critical. I mean, the people in my team and my husband. So they're more, they're focused on what really matters, like the numbers and whatnot. But I think women have more empathy, and they're more creative, and they look beyond whatever the numbers are. So I guess it's a good dynamic. I mean, we do fight at times, or like, you don't understand me, you don't understand me. But at the end of the day, I think it kind of works because it keeps your mind, working and yeah, challenged, as what you say. So, if you think about something, and I think that good balance keeps them on their toes. Because they're like, I want to be better than him. And he's like, I know how she feels, like, those kind of things. So I guess it's that good dynamics. And I used to have an all-female team. Not saying that it's not good, but I guess somehow when you have some men in the team, it's nice. It's less emotional when all of them get their periods together and like someone to tell you like, we don't have the money, but we can find the money. So, like those kind of things. So, yeah.
Right, that's actually very, very interesting. And I think one keyword that I just want to point out here is understanding each other, right? Understanding, again, it goes back to what Elena, what Dr. Ibrahim shared as well. Understanding each other's strengths, each other's weaknesses, and just understanding each other's personality to really dumb it down to the simplest things. So that's such a refreshing take to hear that at the end of the day, in our fight or in our battle towards gender equality, it's not about competing, it's not about rivalry, it's about synergy, finding that sameness, complementing the differences, complementing the gaps, and working towards just a better future for everyone involved here. Now, I think that brings us to our final little block here where we want to talk a little bit about how we can move forward or lead forward together. If the first two blocks were, again, just to have a little refresher, the first block we talked a little bit about the individual mindset, and that was more about balance. That was more about awareness. That's what Dr. Ibrahim mentioned earlier. That second block, when we talk about bias and gender balance, was more about understanding each other. This last block, I really want to just touch a little bit about action, about what we can do or what we have maybe done with the panelists on stage here to lead towards that better future for both women and men. How do we build a future where leadership isn't about gender at the end of the day, right? It's about your quality, your humanity, and your values as a person. So just going back to Sarah, I think, how can we redefine success beyond just titles? How can we redefine success in leaderships, especially beyond your KPIs, beyond your revenues, beyond promotions, and moving towards mentorship, empathy, and also just share responsibility. So if that's something that Cuura has already implemented, like a mentorship system, how does that work? How do we move forward towards that future together?
I think a lot of it, like for me, I was in business accidentally, right? So a few years ago, right before COVID, I had to close down my fashion business. So I think I was really tested at that time because I didn't have money and I had a team to sustain. So I made the decision it wasn't a wise decision financially, kind of stupid back then. With whatever money that we had, we used it to sustain the team. So this was actually a very painful point in my life because we had to choose and my husband was actually laid off at that time. So I think I was really tested. Do you want to be this leader or do you want to just save yourself? So I think I kind of grew at that time. And it was, when people say you lead by example, I thought it was just, hustling, be with the team, whenever they do their work. If they have to stay back, I stay back with them. It was just that. But I saw the team growing from just being, this is so sad, salespeople to actually being leaders themselves. Because I think they knew that I was being selfless to myself and I didn't have anything else, but I told them, whatever I had, I'm sharing this with you guys. And I saw them grow, and I think it was at that moment that I knew that, it's not just saying you lead by example, but it's also letting them know that you are vulnerable. I mean, you're not perfect as well, but we're doing this together and we're trying. So we try this together. And I think that not only made me grow as a businesswoman, but also for them. So for me, I guess men and women, whatever it is, even you yourself as a leader, you have to let them know that you're also vulnerable. So it makes them trust you more. And especially when my husband came into the business, he used to not be around as much. But when he was around, they could see that, he's a leader and he's also a father. So sometimes when I'm really busy, he's the one he would call like, I think I need to get the dinner ready for the kids. It's okay. I'll be at home. You go settle the pop-up or whatever. So I think it opens up a different perspective to the male staff. When they got married, they are not afraid to tell us that, you know, my kids are sick, my wife can take off, I'm so sorry, I have to work from home, because they know that we understood that. So I guess, yeah, that. Why am I crying anyway?
No, thank you for sharing that so candidly. It's really, really beautiful. And I think it's really lovely to hear. Again, you're leading by example. I know you just mentioned leading by example. It's not just about hustling or staying back in the office so your team can see you staying back, right? But it's exactly this, right? Exactly leading with value. As what Dr. Ibrahim mentioned earlier, just having that value-driven leader and just having your team witnessing that my boss, my leader is a human too, yet she is still here and she's still thriving and she's still leading us with heart and with empathy. And if anything, that makes us want to work harder. So thank you so much for sharing that so openly.
I hope so.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. Dr. Ibrahim, what do you think? So what do you think about this exact topic? How do you redefine success as a leader beyond just the KPIs and the title, especially for such a traditional business like a dentist, right? So it's not e-commerce or anything. So how do you redefine leadership?
So basically, what I feel is being balanced in being a leader that sets a tone of balancedness in everyone, because you want everyone to do their job, right? But being balanced is not about you do the same number of things. You do ABC and you also have to do ABC. Being balanced, it's not a straight line. Being balanced is harnessing each other's strength and having a shared value and a shared dream, or might I say a shared goal. So you want to reach this goal, you can work together, but doesn't necessarily everyone have to work until late night. So we know if you have kids and everything, okay, I'll work in the morning, you will take the night shift, but I can, do things faster, things like that. It's I would say, I mean, I love how we can harness everyone's strength in gender roles. But like I say, now it has very much intertwined, and everyone have their own weakness and also a strength that you can use. And sometimes it's not just about to show how good you are. It's taking a step back. It's also a show of strength, I might say. Like with Fuzana at home, it's either you want to lead or you want to just go and take the laundry. It depends on, or you just want to go and do your coffee, or you want to take things in control. So basically you have to read the room, read the situation. But as long as you have the same goal, as long as you have the shared value and the shared dream together, you can lead to become a better leader. Yeah.
Wow, that one key that I mentioned as well, I heard as well from you earlier, was reading the room. I think that's a very, very understated value and quality as a good leader, especially in today's age where there's so many news, there's so many different factors that influence your lives and your work decisions, right? Your work or even decisions at home. So reading the room is such a key and understated value. Thank you for sharing that as well. That's a very, very good definition of what success in leaders would look like today. Now, Alana, I'd just like to go to you as well. In your pursuit or in your purview as a content creator, as an entrepreneur as well, how do you think men, a lot of male leaders or male allies, can actively support or champion more women in their respective workforces? And how can women in turn champion for more inclusive policies or more inclusive growth that benefits everyone? Again, we want this to be a win-win situation at the end of the day. So how do you think that can happen?
Okay, I feel like for me, I'm in quite a different situation. So I never went into corporate, for example. I managed to swerve being in corporate. And don't get me wrong, I thought I was going to be a corporate girly. I got my international business degree. And then I really thought I was going to go back to Scotland and be working in corporate. But then I started my content creation. And then I didn't want to give up on my content creation. And I decided this is what I'm going to do. But because of that, it is a unique space to be in, you know? I've really like avoided all this kind of gender drama because I've never been in that workplace to actually have that. And what I would say is my experience is all social media. From the age of 20 to 25, it's just social media. And I feel like we do not even like see genders lot. Like we just like try our best. We do collabs together. It doesn't matter if you're male, female. It's just about respecting each other, knowing your limits, knowing your boundaries. It's getting in touch with people that make similar and different content to you and just being positive and always understanding the message that you want to give. And inshallah, that's a positive and inspiring message. So having said all that, for me, you know, I'm so blessed to be in the situation that I'm in. And I just always want to use my social media to make sure that no gender feels left out and no gender feels like invaluable or undermined by another. And alhamdulillah, I see in my space that we've managed to avoid potentially some of this workplace drama because we just live and let live, you know, we just try our best, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, that's very, very refreshing take. And you do have a unique lens on what gender, I guess gender, not gender drama per se, but how gender equality and what that looks like in your lens of a non-corporate, very, very modern take on how men operate at work versus how women operate at work with regards to social creation as well. So thanks so much for sharing that. Now, I just want to go a little bit into the corporate side of things before we wrap things up here. So for the two panelists to my left here, I think we can start with Sarah as well. How do you think, or how do you see mental wellness or empathy being built into, I guess, corporate leadership or team building or development programs at Cuura? So not just as a training program per se, but it could just be the small things on the daily as part of the culture in the company. So how do you see mental well-being, resilience being incorporated in such programs or a culture in the day-to-day?
Well, I've never really officially had a program for that. But what we do is, you know, I always learn that it's always meaningful to the team that I'm always there and really listening. You know, when it gets really busy, sometimes you don't have time because you're like, I'm doing everything. I want to listen to your problems. But then you have to understand they're humans as well. So you know, because you're with them all the time and you know when they're not in a good space. And you have to know that, okay, we're not working. What is your problem? What do you need? And it's really listening. It's not like at the back of your mind having that mindset like, oh, like something like that, you know? Because I think they do appreciate that. And no matter what happens, you have to understand that their lives, it doesn't stop when they work. It's not like us, you know, we work all the time, even when we're sleeping. Sometimes you dream about, oh, tomorrow I have to do something, you know? But it's not like that with them, and you have to acknowledge that. So in that sense that, for instance, you're really busy and you have a busy week, but, you know, that team is getting married and she's going to have her bridal shower. You have to understand that, you know, it's her time. So you have to allow that. So I guess those are the small things that means a lot to the team. So no matter what happens, like for instance, one person gets influenza and she's on leave for 1 week, but you know it's like the busiest week and you don't have anything else, but you can't do anything and you just can't pressure that person. Although I know that some of my team members would say that it's okay, Kak Sarah, I would reply your email, whatever. So I was like, it's okay. You know, we'll figure it out. Although I'm dying, but yes. So I guess they have to know that you are there for them, you know, not really saying that, you know, I'm here for you, but don't really mean it. It's like, you really mean it. So, yeah.
Well, that's really, really lovely to hear. So it's not really just a one-day program, oh, that I'm here for you for 1 day and then that is it. So you actively practice as a leader. You actively practice what you preach. You actively try to be there as much as you can for your team. And that's very, very valuable. I'm sure your team appreciates that very, very much. And the fact that you mentioned how some of your employees, or if not all of them, even when they get influenza or when they're on leave, the fact that they still try to complete their work, I believe that's a testament to your leadership as well. So that's really, really refreshing to hear. Dr. Ibrahim, what about you? especially since you mentioned earlier that being a dentist is one of the top 10 most suicidal professions in this in this career line. Yeah, so how do you then instill that resilience, that mental well-being for not just you but also your team, like everyone in the team? How do you instill that?
So basically, what would I will put my focus on is getting everyone to be the best versions of themselves. So you also want to be the best version of yourself. You know, like in Islam also, we know that we have to be like better than yesterday. It's not better than last year. It's like better than yesterday. So it's like if you improve by 0.5%, that's already good. Because if you put it like 0.5% a day, that's actually a lot. So if you count like 360 days, that's already like 150% better. So than a year. So be better every day. But how to get there is by allowing your team and yourself to be the best version of yourself. Okay? And by looking at the what are the boundaries, by looking at what are the limitations, then you can go around it. You can go around and you can harness that potential, because like I said, the result is not just about numbers, not just about statistics. It's also a shared value, a shared growth. So when everyone in the team knows that you are going to that direction, everyone can do their best in their own way to reach to the goal. So getting everyone to reach their own potential, I think is very important. And once you find the fine tuning of the sweet spot on how everybody can work the best in bringing the best self to the work, then you'll move forward.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that point of being even just not 1 but 0.5% better every day makes all the difference. And it's in a religious sense, it makes sense in a religious sense, it makes sense in a humanity sense, no matter which religion. It's just something that is scientifically proven as well. So thank you for sharing that. And I think having a team, like you mentioned, that believes in not just what they do on a day-to-day, but believes in a shared value and a shared goal, that is something that is powerful for every single member in your team, no matter how big or small of a role they play within your company. So thanks so much for sharing that. Now, just to close things off a little bit here, I'd just like to go round by round here, starting with Elena, perhaps. What's one mindset shift that you believe every leader, man or woman, can do today to lead with more balance, lead with more mental strength and more empathy? What's one mindset shift if you have to choose one?
I think it's something that we've mentioned as a panel here time and time again tonight, is just understanding. We have like went past this leadership where it's just so like democratic, it's so like, you know, authoritarianism, it's just so, you know, shouting at people. You cannot, you know, you've got to actually understand your team. Everybody brings in different personalities, everyone brings in different strengths. So if you're going to just shout at your team all day, they are not going to see you as a leader, they're going to see you as an enemy, but they're there for the money. So please take care of your team. And yeah, I think understanding is going to be the way that leaders will go forward into the future.
Thank you so much for sharing. So understanding is, again, as we've heard over the past hour, is a very, very key and common theme to taking that first step to being a better and more empathetic and effective leader. Dr. Ibrahim, what about you? What's one mindset shift, if you can share, that leaders can take today?
I think you see it before. If I were to choose one, I would say it's empathy. I would say it's to internalize empathy at its core. Look things in a different perspective. Look things in your team's perspective. Look things in the eyes of other person. So the more ideas come in, the more perspective that you can see, the better way you can solve the problem. Because sometimes I think, thank you Sinar Daily for bringing this topic into talks, you know, so that we can talk it out loud. gender. I think this topic is heavy, but it's important for us to talk it out loud. And in this era, we know that anyone can reach their potential. Everyone can reach anything, whether it's man, whether it's a woman. But you need to understand their weakness and strength. So the main core thing is to have empathy so that you can see things from a different perspective.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Empathy is another very, very key role. And beyond empathy, so what, just to highlight what you've mentioned as well again to the audience here, empathy is not just about, I guess in the Malay word we like to say kasihan, right? That's sympathy. People tend to confuse empathy for sympathy. Sympathy is what we call kasihan in Malay, but empathy is like what Dr. Ibrahim and what Elena and Sarah has mentioned. It's about seeing things from a different perspective, even when you maybe don't understand or agree with it yourself, but you just have to have the ability to see and have the ability to digest that is relevant, a relevant experience to them, even if it's not relevant to you. So thanks for sharing that. That's actually a very, very key mindset shift, especially in today's trying times, especially with the newer generation coming to the workforce and being even more outspoken about their work experiences and fighting for their rights. I think that's a very, very key way to lead as well. Last but not least, Sarah, what is one mindset shift, if you had to choose, that you think leaders should practice and leaders should practice to lead with a better and effective manner?
I think it's, lead with grace, not just having that, grind mindset. Because as a leader, sometimes you always want, your team to grind as much as you. And also, because of that, you tend to sometimes react when things don't go your way. So I guess lead with grace. It's not just for yourself. When the team sees you more, calmer, they know that you accept flaws as well. So I guess it helps them grow as well. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So you have to lead with grace, and that's a very, very powerful ending to our conversation today. Can we give a round of applause to our inspiring panelists, everyone? Thank you so much, Elena, Dr. Ibrahim, Sarah. That was a very, very powerful conversation that we had over the past hour. It is also a great reminder that leadership is not about competing, or it's not about competition, especially when we talk about a gender lens, right? It's not about competing with one another. If anything, it's about collaborating with one another and collaborating with each other to ensure that everyone achieves success towards a shared goal and an agreed goal, no matter what that may be, no matter the industry. So thank you so much, you three. Just remember that before we end, one thing that we like to take away here is when we lead with empathy, when we lead with grace, awareness, balance, all the keywords that we hear a lot in the past hour up here, everybody wins. No matter who you are, no matter your gender, your age even, no matter your role in the company or in the workforce, everyone will win if the leader can lead and start with grace, with empathy, and with understanding. Thank you to our amazing, amazing panelists here. And thank you again to Sinar Daily for, again, putting such thought into action and into conversation here. Thank you again to KLGCC Mall for an amazing, amazing space to share with everyone today. And I hope we continue after or beyond this conversation as well to build workplaces, build communities, as well as build leaders that are not just smart and brilliant and hardworking, but also balanced, more empathetic, and more understanding for the benefit of everyone involved as well. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good weekend and have a good evening. You can stay over, have some refreshments. If you'd like to speak and ask a few questions to our panelists, feel free to stick around as well. They will be here for a while. And before we end, just have a good night. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Sinar Daily, as well. Thank you as well.
The world's unfolding, stories untold. Voices rising and we're breaking the mold. Fearless and bold, we're taking the lead, empowering mind.